What are we discussing on today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast? Who should be the D-backs closer in 2025? And checking out the market value for D-backs free agents this offseason.
You are Locked on Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist and graphic designer. So please go check out my website, MillardThomas24.myportfolio.com. I'm there you can see my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. On today's Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, we're going to be discussing who should be the D-backs closer in 2025, checking in on the market value for D-backs free agents this offseason, and then, of course, wrapping up the podcast with a little play review. Today, we're discussing Kevin Ginkel. So a whole bunch I want to talk to you guys about today. But first, I want to say thank you for making Locked on Diamondbacks your first listen every day. Would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube. Now let's get into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast, and let's discuss who should be the D-backs closer in 2025, because we did a podcast yesterday discussing how we believe the D-backs should stack their bullpen this offseason, the kind of relievers that they need to target, right? When looking at this D-backs bullpen over the last few years, closing has been such an issue, right? And just having good high leverage relievers in the back end of your bullpen has been such a problem for the Snakes ever since I've taken over this podcast in 2020. And when looking at the D-backs bullpen from 2020 to 2022, the biggest issue, I think, is the lack of high velo arms. And the last couple of years, the D-backs have tried to address it with guys like Miguel Castro and Carlos Vargas and the Jose Ruizes or whatever. But like, those guys are not good. All the high velocity arms that they've had the last couple of years, the Andrew Chafin's, like all those guys are not good in the D-backs uniform. And so the D-backs need more high velo arms, but they also need high velo arms that are good. And they do have two of those arms right now in their bullpen, and a Justin Martinez and an AJ Puck. And those two guys were definitely the two best closing options for the D-backs from this past season. But entering 2025, are those the only two candidates that the D-backs have for their closer role? Because AZ Snake Pit just dropped an article where they also were discussing who should be the closer for the D-backs, and they had 5 candidates down for this for the Arizona Diamondbacks. They had AJ Pug Martinez, of course, but then they also had Joe Mantiply, Ryan Thompson, and Kevin Ginkel also as potential candidates. And I love AZ Snake Pit. This is a very well-written article, a lot of great stats, a lot of great information. But if we're being honest with ourselves, I believe there's only 2 realistic candidates out of the D-backs' current bullpen to be a closing option. Because, listen, Joe Mantiply had a fantastic season last year. You actually look at the splits. He actually went against more right-handed batters than lefties last year and performed really good against right-handed batters last year. And, like, the numbers support him being a closer. But I think we all know if Joe Mantiply stepped into the 9th inning of a big game, up a run against like the Dodgers, the Padres, the Phillies, Joe Mantiply is blowing that game. Ryan Thompson, another guy. We love him. All the numbers tell you he's very good. All the numbers tell you he should be a closer, right? At one point last year, he had like a 1.3 ERA in the first half of the season. But every time the D-backs tried to make Ryan Thompson a closer, it has not worked out. So I don't understand why it would be different entering next season. Same with Kevin Ginkel. We tried Ginkel as the closer last year with Paul Sewald out to begin the year, and the results were not good. Ryan Thompson, Ginkel, we've seen as the closer. I think we all know if Joe Mantiply was the closer. I think we know how that situation is going to turn out. We're going to be like, oh, surprise, surprise. The guy that throws 91 is getting crushed as the closer. That's why I believe there's only two realistic options for the D-backs. AJ Puck and Justin Martinez, two high velocity, hard throwing arms. I think both of them have great cases. AJ Puck was elite as a reliever last year, not just with the D-backs, but overall. I mean, even dating back to his time with Miami pre-deadline as a reliever last season, a 1.72 ERA, 57.2 innings pitched. Like, he was insane. A .746 whip. Like, he was unhittable as a reliever, and the numbers are elite for AJ Puck, but the numbers are also very elite for Justin Martinez. Both of these guys are great with runners in scoring position. Both these guys are great in high leverage moments. Both of them have pretty evenly balanced splits. AJ Puck is a guy that tops out more around 97, 98. Meanwhile, Martinez could top out 102, 103. Like, in terms of options between these two guys, I don't think there's a wrong choice between Justin Martinez or AJ Puck. I really think it depends on what your flavor is, because a guy like AJ Puck is probably a better strikeout artist than Justin Martinez. He has better command, but I think there's definitely more fear in opposing batter's heart when Martinez is on the mound than AJ Puck. Like, as hard as AJ Puck can throw, and he throws hard, as nasty as he is, and he's nasty, I just think it's something different when a guy's on the mound, hitting the bottom of the zone with 103 sinker, hitting the top of the zone with 103 fastball, and then a split finger that just disappears. Like, yes, Puck might have a better command and a better feel for his pitches, but Justin Martinez, when he's right, when he's cooking, when he has everything clicking for him, I think he's the best D-backs closing option. Game to game, I think AJ Puck is going to be more reliable, more consistent, probably more trustworthy. But if you're telling me best case scenario for each person, who has the higher ceiling as the D-backs closer, I think it's Justin Martinez. And so for the D-backs, again, for me, the question is safety and more consistency with AJ Puck, but maybe a slightly lower floor. And I still think the floor could still be 30 saves for AJ Puck and like a 2.5 ERA, like still a fantastic season. But for Justin Martinez, he can either be like a 3.8 guy, a 4 ERA guy, or he could be like a 1.5 ERA guy with like 13 strikeouts per 9 innings and throwing 105 every single game. Like, both of these guys, I think, have major upside. AJ Puck has a higher floor, but the ceiling on Justin Martinez is incredible. But also, because Martinez is only 23 years of age, you don't have to feel like you're rushing him if you're the Arizona Diamondbacks. AJ Puck, 29 years of age. So if you also want to go with the veteran who's been around a little bit more experience, then you go with AJ Puck. But whoever the D-backs choose to be their closer next season, you can't go wrong with Puck or Martinez as your closing option. Now we are going to discuss the market value for D-backs free agents this offseason. But hey, if you are looking to purchase tickets to an upcoming sporting event like the Cardinals, the Phoenix Suns, then the best place to do that, of course, is going to be Game Time, because Game Time is the best place for last-minute tickets on sports, concerts, comedy theater, and more. They have this feature called All-In Pricing. When you toggle this feature on, it shows you your total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. They also have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And also, if you're thinking about placing a little wager on a Cardinals or Suns game, then the best place to do that is going to be FanDuel, because get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back into the Locked on Dbacks podcast. And now let's discuss the market value for some Dbacks free agents and seeing if they would be out the Dbacks price range or if they just got too expensive in their own market. Because the Dbacks, of course, have a few guys up: Josh Bell, Jock Peterson, Christian Walker, Paul Sewald, Scott McGough, Randall Grichuk, Kevin Newman, and I guess Miguel Castro. And not all these guys even have a market value tag. Like Scott McGough, I could tell you what his market value is. Minor league deal. Miguel Castro, I could tell you what your market value is. The Yonaheim Japan Tigers, I don't even know what those teams are called. The Fine Eagles, I feel like that's one of the teams in Japan. Like, those guys might be done in Major League Baseball. But the rest of these D-backs free agents could potentially come back, could potentially get a massive contract from someone else. Let's talk about the market value of these D-backs free agents outside of Scott McGough and Miguel Castro. Josh Bell would discuss first. His market value projected at $5.2 million, made 16.5 last year. So for Josh Bell, that is a major downgrade. Sorry, buddy, but it makes sense because if you look at Josh Bell and where he's at this point of his career, not somehow, but he's definitely in the decline. Like, not everyone can be great forever, right? There's a lot of players who are great up until the age of 27, 28, and somehow you're like, wait, they're 30 and they're already cooked? Like, look at Anthony Rizzo. That was a guy who are like future Hall of Famer, MVP candidate year after year. If you go look at his career baseball reference, he's younger than you might think. This was a guy who was cooked by the time he was like 29. Anthony Rizzo's like 32 years old. Like, he's still pretty young. He's a couple years younger than Christian Walker, but somehow he feels like 3 years older than Christian Walker. But Josh Bell, my tangent over, had a decent season with Arizona, 279 average, 796 OPS, 5 home runs in 41 games. Josh Bell, I am fine bringing back, especially if the price tag is $5.2 million. But if we're bringing him back, I want to be as a backup to Christian Walker or as like a DH, and preferably like a platoon DH with, like, if we could bring like Randall Grichuk back, right? Like, obviously it would be a downgrade from Jock Peterson, but if you still have like Josh Bell and Grichuk as your 2 DHs and then Bell backing up Christian Walker still, like, I would not mind that at all. If it's just Josh Bell to be my first baseman, I'm not excited at that option at all. But if it's only $5 million, like, I don't want Josh Bell as my starting first baseman, but I guess there's worse ways you could spend $5 million if that's truly all he's going to get. How about Jock Peterson? Opted out of his deal, and he is currently projected to make $14.7 million. His option was worth more than that. So I have to believe Jock Peterson thinks he's going to get more than the projected spot track market value, because I think his option was like 16 million. I think I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was definitely more than the 14.7 million market value that he's listed on Spotrac. And so if you're the D-backs, like, yeah, if you could get him for 15 for 2 years, like, you definitely do that. Problem is, I think he's going to be more like a 2-year 36, potentially a 2-year 40. Like, Jock Peterson really had a strong season for Arizona. He's been in huge playoff games. He's played for some of the biggest markets in the NL West. Like, this is a guy who's been around the block. He is a veteran. He's a legit bat. He's unafraid. Like, all the cool adjectives you want to use, you could do that for Jock Peterson. And so the current market value on Spotrac, not too expensive, but I have to believe Jock Peterson knows he could get more value than that. Otherwise, why would you turn down an option more than your projected market value? Christian Walker, this is where I actually don't even believe the projected, because the projected number is 22 million. And to be honest, if the D-backs can get Christian Walker at this point for 22 million, I would not be mad at all. They gave him a 4-year, $80 to $85 million deal, 3-year, $75 million deal. Like, I'm not mad at all. It's, if you want to give Christian Walker 22 annually for like 5 to 7 years, now would have a problem. But I think a team like the New York Yankees might come in and be like, here, Christian Walker, here's 5 for 125, right? Something like what the Red Sox gave JD Martinez back in the day. That's something that I am scared of. Rizzo already a free agent. Yankees just lost in the World Series, and one of their biggest issues was defense. Rizzo's actually a good defender, but you can upgrade to the best defender in a Christian Walker. And so I am definitely scared of teams like the New York Yankees. I mean, if Pete Alonso leaves the Mets, I have to believe they're going to be all in on Christian Walker. I don't believe Pete Alonso is going to leave, but just in case, a team like the Mariners have been linked. They need offense. They have all the pitching, but their offense is bad. Dbacks at least extended a qualifying offer to Christian Walker, so they'll get a pick back if he leaves. But sad day if we see Christian Walker leave Arizona. Next up, how about we want to talk about Paul Sewald? He's projected $11.6 million. And I got to say, congrats to whoever wants to give him that amount of money, because almost $12 million for a guy to blow saves for you seems crazy. And again, I'm not against Paul Sewald coming back to the D-backs. I said on a podcast the other day, I would be open to the idea of Sewald coming back. But I said again, when looking at the numbers, if Sewald came back, little money, little value of a contract, and also the role, righty specialist. That's what Paul Sewald is. When you look at his numbers, he's actually good against right-handed bats. He's very good against right-handed bats. The problem is he's terrible against the lefties. And so treat him like right-handed Joe Mantiply. You're only going against right-handed batters, and that's it. And mostly in like low to mid leverage situations. Like you're never going to see the ninth inning. You're probably never going to see the eighth inning. Like he should not be brought back as a closer, a setup man. Righty specialist only for like $5 million, $4 million. Then I'd be fine to bring Paul Sewald back to Arizona in 2025. And then how about like a little Randall Grichuk? How much is he worth entering this offseason? Because his market value is also projected under what his option is at $3.3 million. And considering he just had arguably the best season of his career, I have to imagine Grichuk is going to get an offer where he can play full time and get a little bit more money. Like just like Jock Peterson, I can't believe Grichuk and Jock would turn down options worth less than what their projected market value is, and then sign for a deal. That's less than what their option would have been for 1 year. Like I just don't see it. I imagine Grichuk and Jock are both going to get annual salaries and more than 1 year deals that are worth more than what the option would have given them. Like it would have given them they're looking for more long-term security and more money in the short term at the same time. I think they could get both more than what the D-backs are offering them with just the 1 year option. And so if you're Grichuk or Jock, I don't think you're getting $14.7 million or $3.3 million for Randall Grichuk. I think both of those guys are going to come in over their projected salaries according to Spot Track. And so for the D-backs, when looking at their free agents, I mean, Christian Walker is the most expensive, but he's also the guy that I would put the most money into. Jock Peterson and Grichuk, I think, are both going to go over their projected market value. But if they stay around their market value, then the D-backs should definitely try to do everything that they can to bring him back. And then Paul Sewald at $12 million, I don't want him. But at $4 million, I would bring him back as a righty specialist. Then Kevin Newman, projected $1.6 million. Yeah, if we have no other backup options and if we're not bringing Jordan Lawler up next season, I actually wouldn't mind bringing Kevin Newman back as a backup shortstop for the D-backs in 2025. Now I want to discuss Kevin Ginkel in the season he just had in segment number 3. All right. I want to talk to you guys about Arena Club because for most of us, buying and collecting cards shouldn't be expensive, right? The idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Corbin Carroll rookie card just isn't in cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop on a rookie card. But thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, Now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from last week's Arena Club Slab Pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club Slab Packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent with a full grade rationale provided and explanation of how your card was scored. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockdownmlb and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's arenaclub.com/lockdownmlb. Code LOCKEDONMLB for 10% off your first purchase. And also, I want to talk to you guys about investing because with Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply for products specific to closers. Visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. All right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. And let's discuss, what do we want to discuss? We want to discuss Kevin Ginkel, right? And the season he just had for Arizona, because as we're doing every day on our podcast until we run out of guys that I want to talk about or guys that I think are interesting, we're going to just keep doing play reviews to end the podcast this offseason. And today, I want to talk about Kevin Ginkel because Ginkel is such a fascinating, interesting player in Dbacks lore because I don't really know how Dbacks fans feel about Ginkel. I feel like Dbacks fans are pro Ginkel, but there is a part of them that are like, I want this guy to be a little bit better, or I want this guy to be a little bit more consistent because I think we all know he's good and talented, but there are just times where he is a little frustrating and we think he has more talent or potential than what he has maybe showed. I feel like we always feel like Kevin Ginkel is not living up to his potential because there are times where he has been brilliant for the D-backs and been fantastic. And then there are other times where it's just like, what is going on out there? And I just think looking at his career numbers, it's kind of like the best indication because 2019 broke onto the scene, 1.48 ERA in 24 innings pitched, double-digit strikeouts per 9, sub-1 whip, like 5.5 hits per 9, sub-1 home runs per 9. Like the numbers across the board were elite. 2020 COVID-shortened season was really bad. I'll throw it out. I won't even count it. COVID, everyone was bad for the D-backs in COVID. But then 2021, you're like, all right, COVID, we won't count it. 2021 bounced back for Kevin Ginkel. Then he was bad again. 1.5 whip, a ton of hits given up, a lot of walks allowed, was giving up some home runs as well. Like everything that he did well in the rookie season just went backwards by year 3 in 2021. And then 2022, he got a shorter leash because the D-backs were still concerned after the previous 2 seasons, but then he showed something at the end of 2022 where he looked pretty good. And the D-backs were like, let's give this guy a chance in 2023. And all of a sudden, he was dominant last year in 2023. Helped the D-backs get to the postseason. And then in the postseason, nails. Kevin Ginkel did not allow an earned run all postseason last year. 11.2 innings pitched, 0 earned runs, and 15 Ks. He was a monster for the D-backs in the playoffs and all regular season last year. So entering 2024, it was like, should Ginkel be the closer of Arizona? And then with Paul Sewald out to begin the year, we're like, this is the year Ginkel is going to take over the role. This is going to be Ginkel's season. And instead, it actually went the other way. He was terrible to start the year as the closer. He had to be relegated a little bit to a lesser role, able to work his way back up, ended up being a high leverage reliever again and being elite for most of the season. And then again, started to crumble the final month of the year when the D-backs really needed him to be good. But like a lot of the D-backs, he struggled the final month. And so for Kevin Ginkel, just such a weird career, but I think for the most part, we feel good about Ginkel. We want him to be a little bit better, but he's still one of the better D-backs relievers. And look at his strengths from the 2024 season. One thing that he was great in, because we know Kevin Ginkel is not always the best as a closer, but he is a very good pitcher when it's not a closing situation. If you look at Ginkel in non-save situations, a 1.93 ERA this past year. When you put him in save situations, 5.14. So just don't make him a closer. I think we've learned that through his entire career so far. Don't make him a closer. Just make him a back end high leverage reliever, and you're good. Because what are some other things he does really well? He's great in clutch situations. You look at runners in scoring position, sub 200 average allowed, 519 OPS allowed. You look at high leverage moments, 615 OPS allowed. Like, he's good in all those situations. You look at him against the best competition, against teams with above 500 winning percentage. He's better in those situations than against teams with a below 500 winning percentage. So a lot of the numbers tell you this is a big game pitcher. This is a clutch guy. Even when you look at his numbers, 0 days of rest. This is someone that actually is still good in those situations. A 1.17 ERA on 0 days of rest. And so for Kevin Ginkel, this is a guy who is supremely talented, who can throw high 90s. He is one of the few high velo arms that the D-backs have outside of Martinez and Puck. Their issue is we know how good he is. We just want him to be a little bit better and a little bit more consistent. And if Kevin Ginkel can do that entering next year, I think every D-backs fan would be happy. I think we want him to be the third best D-backs reliever. We don't need him to be the best or even the second best. We have AJ Puck and Justin Martinez. If he could be the third go-to reliever for this D-backs bullpen in 2025, like, that's all we're asking for as Arizona fans. I think the idea of Kevin Ginkel being the closer of the future, like, he's already 30 years old. Justin Martinez has come in and stolen that spot from Kevin Ginkel. But that doesn't mean Kevin Ginkel can't still be the high leverage setup man of the future for the D-backs over the next few seasons, or at least the third go-to reliever in the bullpen. And so Ginkel, I still like him a lot. I still have a lot of trust in him, but just need to see a little bit more out of the tank, a little bit more consistency for him to go to that next level in 2025. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.